Hi, and welcome to this subject leader session on breastfeeding and the teaching resources that are available for schools. My name is Sally Goodwin-Mills, and I'm an Advanced Health Improvement Specialist in Infant Feeding and Maternity based here in Leeds City Council. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen and find out more about how you can support children and young people to become comfortable and familiar with breastfeeding through learning at school. The UK has some of the lowest breastfeeding rates in the world, with 80% of families saying that breastfeeding ended before they wanted it to. The leading experts in the field, including UNICEF's The Baby Friendly Initiative and the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health, believe that including breastfeeding within the school curriculum will have a positive impact on parents of the future. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child states that education about breastfeeding is the right of every child. And research suggests that decisions about how babies will be fed are made long before pregnancy and when young people feel comfortable with breastfeeding. This creates more confident parents and facilitates wider societal support for new families. In Scotland, for example, breastfeeding already forms part of the curriculum for excellence in health and wellbeing, while the role of breastfeeding in infancy is specified in the food and health curriculum. In England and Wales, while the current curriculum does not specify or specifically mention breastfeeding, there are many places where it has a natural home. Throughout the key stages, the science curriculum in England and Wales looks at life cycles. From notice that animals, including humans, have offspring which grow into adults, and find out about and describe the basic needs of animals, including humans, for survival, so water, food and air. In year 2, to reproduction in humans, as an example of a mammal, including the structure and function of the male and female reproductive systems in Key Stage 3. The discussion of breastfeeding also sits neatly in the new relationships and sex education and health education curriculum in England and Wales. The subject of breastfeeding touches on health and nutrition, family relationships, roles and responsibilities of parents, and body changes in puberty. So we're going to have a quick look a little bit more about this in some detail. So just a quick look at the session outline. First of all, I'll share some information about how this work fits in with local and national policy, the health and wellbeing impact of breastfeeding, some of the data, how schools can make a difference, an introduction to the resources and how to access the resources. And the final slide includes my contact details if you would like to discuss what you've heard in the session or just to find out a little bit more. Let's take a look at how supporting breastfeeding fits in with policy in Leeds. You may be familiar with some of the documents here: the Best Start Plan, the Best Council Plan, Leeds Health and Wellbeing Strategy, Leeds Maternity Strategy, Leeds Children and Young People's Plan. All of these plans and strategies include priorities or actions which aim to support every child born in Leeds to have the best start in life. And we know that breastfeeding is part of the picture in enabling this to happen. The next slide is a short film from UNICEF Baby Friendly Initiative, providing some of the national context, explaining why we need to continue with this work to educate and support around breastfeeding and the importance of seeing the bigger picture. does breastfeeding make such a difference? Why all the fuss? Breast milk provides the ideal nutrition for infants in the first stages of life, and current national and international guidance recommends exclusive breastfeeding from birth and for the first six months of life, with ongoing breastfeeding for 2 years and beyond. There is substantial evidence to suggest that breastfeeding provides protection and reduces the risk of a number of childhood illnesses and longer-term health conditions. So let's take a closer look. In the baby, breastfeeding reduces the risk of infections like chest or ear infections, reduces the risk of allergies like asthma and eczema. It reduces the risk of sudden infant death by around 50%. And it also reduces the risk of insulin-dependent diabetes and childhood leukemia. In the mother, breastfeeding reduces the risk of breast cancer and ovarian cancer by around 20% for each year that mother breastfeeds. It also reduces the risk of osteoporosis and assists with natural child spacing. In both the mother and the baby, in the longer term, breastfeeding reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease and, really importantly, reduces the risk of obesity. It also supports baby's brain development, bonding and attachment, and responsive parenting. Let's take a look at the data. So here we can see breastfeeding initiation and breastfeeding rates at 6 to 8 weeks, the Leeds average compared with England average. We can see that Leeds are slightly lower than England, with 67.4% of mums initiating breastfeeding in Leeds, whereas 74% initiate breastfeeding across England. Whereas at 6 to 8 weeks, we can see actually that Leeds are doing a little bit better than England, with 48.5% of the mums who started breastfeeding still breastfeeding at 6 to 8 weeks, whereas with England there's 46.2%. We also know that there are huge inequalities for those living in more deprived areas being less likely to breastfeed. For example, 55% of babies in Killingbeck and Seacroft start breastfeeding compared to 86% of babies born to mothers in Wetherby. As discussed in the previous slide, this has a lasting impact on the health and well-being of the mother and child, and not breastfeeding can worsen those already existing health inequalities. Obesity rates. So what does this have to do with breastfeeding? As I mentioned when we looked at the health outcomes, the risk of obesity is reduced when babies are breastfed. The research tells us that this is primarily thought to be due to a protein hormone in breast milk called leptin, which supports energy balance and appetite regulation. It also supports later body weight regulation. So the figures on the graph show obesity rates for Leeds reception year and year 6 from 2013-14 to 2020-21. The graph on the screen makes for stark reading, doesn't it? With that really steep increase of nearly 5% in reception children being very overweight, happening during the COVID pandemic. This is really similar to the national picture, and although not something that could be fully prevented by breastfeeding, for children who have been breastfed, they do have a reduced risk of becoming very overweight. And just to note, we don't currently have the numbers for year 6, which is why the graph there stops at 2019-20. We weren't able to collect enough numbers to be able to collect that data. How can schools make a difference? I'm going to talk about the resource in a moment, but I just wanted to think about this first. So for you, how can you make a difference? Be prepared to talk about breastfeeding. It shouldn't be a taboo subject or something to be embarrassed or worried about. Think about how you could link the topic into existing lessons. We'll have a look at that in a moment when we look at the example activities. Speak positively about breastfeeding. Be positive, even if you don't feel it and it's not been your experience. It could make a really big difference and a huge difference to the way a young person sees breastfeeding in the future. Have you adopted the Leeds School's breastfeeding guidance? This was developed in partnership and it's a supportive document for staff and students. Could you become a breastfeeding friendly Leeds venue? A breastfeeding friendly Leeds school? It's really easy to sign up. We've got over 100 venues, including things like places like children's centres, health centres, cafes and restaurants. You don't need to do anything special, just be supportive. And if you want to know any more about the Leeds School's breastfeeding guidance or the breastfeeding friendly Leeds venues, my contact details will be on the final slide. The resources. The resource pack has been created by a qualified teacher and international board certified lactation consultant to support schools to allow children to learn about breast milk and breastfeeding, which in turn will contribute to their future confidence in breastfeeding and their ability to make informed decisions about how feeding their baby when the time comes. Lesson plans for Key Stage 1 to Key Stage 3 with associated resources. There's mini milks discussion slides primarily for Key Stage 2 and frequently asked questions for teachers. The link on the slide also takes you to the pack. It's important to recognise that there are as many personal experiences of feeding babies as there are people doing it, and these experiences are often really meaningful for the people that have lived them. I expect many of you to be parents yourselves and thus have personal experience of feeding babies or have been around family or friends when feeding their babies. Whatever your experience, this resource aims to help you to guide fun activities and conversations while maintaining a focus on the evidence and the value of breastfeeding. Mini milks. This is about normalising breastfeeding for school-aged children. It's about having conversations and discussion during class time. There's a really good selection of slides called mini milks, which can be used for short discussion sessions. So like it says, 10 or 20 minutes discussions, which can be timed really flexibly. It can be used as a group work, as a whole class or paired discussion. And it can be used as writing prompts too, supporting other areas of the curriculum. And to support you in using the mini milks, there's a fairly extensive notes section with extra information for teachers to ensure that you feel well supported. There might also be an option for a peer supporter in your area to come into your school to support a session. If you'd like more information or to contact someone about this, please just do get in touch with me and I can put you in touch with the right person. This example activity is called Beyond Food and Drink. Here are 10 other things that you find in breast milk, along with a brief description of why each is there. If you could only keep 5 of these, which one would you choose and why? So this could be done in a small groups or whole class or pairs, and then share their choice of 5 ingredients to keep after their discussion. An example might be to take a look at the common themes, which did everyone choose to leave out and why? So for example, if it were oligosaccharides, the discussion could be around the importance to our health of having good bacteria in and on our bodies, being an active area of research, or that having a healthy population of good bacteria in our bodies appears to be related to all aspects of our health, keeping us from getting upset stomachs, possibly helping us stay a healthy weight, and it might even be protecting our mental health. So this is just one component that we're talking about here. So it could be kept relatively short, or to discuss more, making it a much longer session, looking at more of them. It's really important to know, however you do this though, that none of these components are found in formula milk. And some of these things can only be found in breast milk, like living cells, stem cells, and antibodies. So thinking about this activity, where could it be slotted into your existing curriculum? For example, science or ethics even, human biology. You'll know much better than I do. Another example activity. This can be a really quick and easy way of sharing information about breastfeeding using the information on the poster. This is really self-explanatory and can be used in a number of different ways. Using the poster to highlight the benefits of breast milk and then asking, are there words here you don't understand? Do you know how to spell the words? Do you need to look them up? Or having pairs discuss and try and remember as many of the benefits as possible. How many can you remember? Have you got any questions? What do they already know about them? It's a really simple way of engaging conversation with young people. This activity is a little bit more advanced and might need some pre-information to support it, or there might be a space that it would fit in perfectly already. So this activity is about writing a food label for a breast. What would it say? What information would they put on the label? The teacher notes and frequently asked questions section fully support you to be able to provide the information that is required to ensure it's a meaningful activity and that students understand the complex and amazing components of breast milk, and hopefully they'll be keen to know more. Using the resources in practice. The resources could be embedded in many different lessons, including PHSE and science lessons, short activities rather than whole lesson plans, to enable embedding into current curriculum rather than demanding additional space in the curriculum for whole lesson plans. Key messages about benefits of breastfeeding and discussions on issues surrounding breastfeeding. This requires an understanding of why it's important and a desire to share to make it effective. To help you do that, you could enlist the help of a local volunteer breastfeeding peer supporter, and if you'd like to do that, please do get in touch with me. Here's the link again and a look at what the website looks like. Please do take a look. and see if you can bring some of this into your classroom. You can make such a difference to this agenda and to ensuring that babies in Leeds have the best start in life. So do you want to know more? If you do, please do get in touch. My contact email and telephone number are there. I'd really love to talk to you about this. And thank you for taking the time for listening. I really appreciate it.